Hangout. You never know what you might hear. Weekday mornings 9 to 11 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. The Elks Call is the newest Edmonton Elks podcast located in Edmonton, discussing everything Elks. Join friends of EST, Scout and Catherine, Friday nights at 8 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. The Oil Stream.
Last summer on the Oil Stream, you and I discussed the possibility of Gagne coming back here on a PTO. He signed with Winnipeg and got an actual contract.
Anytime you can have Sam Gagne involved in your organization in any way, it's a major positive for you.
They love him.
The Oil Stream with Nielsen and Gazzola. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon. Only on Edmonton Sports Talk. Tom Gazzola and Sean Bell take you on a hot lap around the NHL with Hello Hockey! Saturday mornings at 10, only on Edmonton Sports Talk. Catch up with friends of EST, Andrew, Mike, and Kayla, as they get you in the huddle with the Edmonton Elks on the Turf District. Thursday nights at 8, EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Join friend of EST, Guy Flaming, for the Pipeline Show, Monday nights at 8 and Saturday at noon, as he has you covered with CHL, CJHL, USHL, NAHL, NCAA, and U Sports, plus the World Juniors, Frozen Four, and NHL Draft on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Get all the latest news and takes on everything Oilers with Dustin Nielsen and Tom Gazzola on the Oil Stream. Live at noon, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Join Murray McCourt and Curtis Stock for tips and tales from courses around Edmonton and area with the VIP Golf Show, presented by the Tailor Made Performance Center at the Ranch. Sundays at 8:30. Only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Shop.
We've been doing this for a long time. We spend all this time salivating over the season. Sometimes, if you haven't learned your lesson, you go hard betting on week one, and then we get ready to get into week 3 of the season going, what the hell were we talking about for a month leading into the season? Because everything we thought was the case was wrong. So I always tread a little lightly, and I try not to make these so definitive takes. Things can change very, very quickly, or maybe they have, and we just haven't seen it yet.
The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler. Weekday mornings at 11, only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Catch up with friends of EST, Andrew, Mike, and Kayla, as they get you in the huddle with the Edmonton Elks on the Turf District. Thursday nights at 8, EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Don't feel like working? Join the Hangout. You never know what you might hear. Weekday mornings 9 to 11 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Join friend of EST, Guy Flaming, for the Pipeline Show, Monday nights at 8 and Saturday at noon, as he has you covered with CHL, CJHL, USHL, NAHL, NCAA, and U Sports, plus the World Juniors, Frozen Four, and NHL Draft on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Friend of EST, Eric Thomas, takes you around the track all the way to the checkered flag on Raceline Radio, Tuesday nights at 8 and Saturday morning at 9, only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tom Gazzola and Sean Bell take you on a hot lap around the NHL with Hello Hockey! Saturday mornings at 10, only on Edmonton Sports Talk.
It's time for another episode of The Oil Stream with Dustin Nielsen and Tom Gazzola, presented by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen.
We're going to need our mics on. So that was kind of important. And I didn't have our mics turned on. So I kind of... That's why I
the music?
Well, no, it's going to have to run out.
Are you serious?
Oh, it's only like a minute long.
Okay.
Or you want... Well, I already stood up one.
No.
Well, there's no Dusty.
Do whatever you want. Welcome to the Oil Stream.
Welcome to the Oil Stream.
All
Adam
right.
Wanek with you here today, filling in for Dusty, because he's out in Regina, and glad he got to do the lock shop with Huss.
That was great.
But the Regina internet isn't always the best, so we don't want to risk
reliable.
the Oil Stream today. So I'm sitting in for Dustin Nielsen, but in your chair, you're filling in for yourself, but in Dusty's chair.
Yep.
That makes no sense. That makes no sense.
Okay.
This is the Oil Stream. Adam Wanek, Tom Gazzola with you here on Edmonton Sports Talk and EdmontonSportsTalk.com, as we got a lot to get to on the show today. The Oil Stream presented by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. What's the big thing Dusty loves right now? He's into the blackened chicken sandwich.
Blackened chicken sandwich. You really can't go wrong there. The nugs are always great, and I think it's the sweet and spicy that they've got going on right now. I was talking about it today on the Nielsen show.
And
yeah.
I don't know, you got ripped for the mac and cheese love by him.
I know.
And I don't understand why he's ripping you for that. Who doesn't love a good mac and cheese?
A good mac and cheese goes a long way.
What's the
thing?
thing?
Good mac and cheese. You can mess up mac and cheese.
100% you can.
Popeyes does not.
So I honestly don't get why he rips you for that one.
Him of all people.
That's an even better point.
Right?
That is an even better point.
Thank you. And I
I
say that with love. I say it with love. Dusty, we love you, but how dare you knock the mac and cheese at Popeyes?
There's two things to never listen to Dusty about. Food? The guy hates food. Like
Cuisine is not his forte.
He is very picky. He doesn't eat veggies, doesn't eat fruit, none of that. And fashion. Is that fair?
Very fair.
I think those are some fair things that we could say that you don't listen to. You listen to Dusty on a lot of things.
Yep.
Those two are some things that you don't want to get to. Today on the Oil Stream, lots to get to, including we're continuing your rankings of importance for the Edmonton Oilers. You and I kind of confused each other earlier. I said we're going 6 through 10. You're saying we're going through 10 through 6 because we do work backwards.
Yeah, we do.
But that's where we are with the ranking of importance. Dusty not missing the big unveiling, but I think this is actually probably the most important one, though. I think when we're I don't know your list. If we're talking about importance of 1 through 5, I think a lot of people will agree or know who's going to be at the top of that one.
Yes.
I think 6 through 10 could have a lot more debate in this.
Yes.
Where did you struggle most on this?
The middle section, I think. I mean, if you ask me, this list is brilliant.
Well, of course.
And I think this list is very similar to what most Oiler fans would have. I think. I could be wrong. I go back to original Puzar, who loves a good debate and will poke and pry and needle and correct because he's very thorough, as we've learned, but understanding at the same time. So he wanted to go at me for Drake Gazzola. I get it. That was a throw-in, OP. That was a throw-in. But when we get to this portion, because I know there's a few people, too, talking about Matthias Janmark and where he sat. I had him at 15. We talked about him last show on Wednesday. Some look at Matthias Janmark and go, well, that doesn't do it for me. But he's just such a quiet, steady, consistent NHLer that he goes unnoticed. And I think for good reasons. When we talk about defensemen that go unnoticed because they really don't stand out for anything too great or anything too bad in their game. I think Janmark is one of those few forwards that kind of falls into that category where it's like he's usually in the right spot, usually makes the right play with the puck, doesn't really hurt you. And when he does, like he did in the playoffs with that penalty, that was a high stick.
Was he the player last year on the Oil Stream? At one point, you put him like one of the more important players.
Well, I think
or like
that's
unsung
going back.
hero or something like what it was.
No,
almost.
I did have him up there.
Didn't you have? I think it was
I had him up there, and I said, listen, there was a caveat there. It was Nick Bjugstad could surpass him, and in that, and he did. So, but it was at that moment where we were. Bjugstad had just gotten to the team, and I said, listen, I'm putting Janmark here right now. Most underestimated, I think, Oiler at the time.
That's maybe what it was.
And I think Bjugstad could take over, and he certainly did.
On the EST Hangout.
Some people don't listen to that part. Sorry.
DVD, he asked, are we going to talk Oilers? And I was like, well, of course not. Like, there's not a lot going on at that time for, like, with what we do with the Hangout. But for the Oilers, this is now really the kickoff, in a sense, of the season because rookie camp starts today when they come back. Main camp's going to start next week. What are you watching for with rookie camp in Penticton? Is there anything you're watching for? Because like we all look at that roster and go, there's not a lot of great prospects. The Oilers are in a position where young stars isn't that significant because everyone's looking at this team for what they do in the NHL for Stanley Cup aspirations. And when you have that, you're not focused as much on the young stars. But what are you paying attention to here in Penticton?
I think just this is me. It's going to be different for everyone. And I get that. But for me, it'll be growth from guys going into their second year of pro hockey, guys becoming pros and how they look compared to what they were showing us at camp last year and rookie camp. And you just see a maturation process. And I don't know, you make mental notes of how they're tracking and how they perform compared to their peers, not only in camp. So, teammates, quote unquote, even though they're trying to outperform their peers within the same system, but then how they perform in these games that are on Oilers Plus. And I suppose a lot of us, or if you're not watching, like if you do have a subscription, you'll watch these games, or many of us will probably watch the highlights and look at the box scores and look at the minutes and how these guys perform. But I think, overall, the theme for me will be progress. A Borgo, who I brought up earlier on the Nielsen show, Matvei Petrov, who I know they're high on, Carter Savoy, who got some time in Bakersfield, Atulio, and then, Max Warner, who was brought up by Eric earlier in the day. Bo Akey, we'll see what he looks like, who the Oilers took in the second round. Guys like that. On the goaltending side, I don't think there's as much of a focus right now, but you keep tabs.
How much stock do you put into rookie camp though? When these
very little.
Do you like you mentioned Borgo?
Mm-hmm.
Is that mostly main camp that you're going to look at that more, or what can you take away from a rookie camp with a prospect like that?
A concern would be if, for example, Borgo looked pedestrian or very much middle of the pack in this group, where he should already be better than, and he was last year too. Like you can see and notice the separation. This is where he needs to be way better than these guys after a year of pro under his belt. Savoy should be above these guys.
So you just want to see that
Petrov should be one of the better guys, and he was last year too.
The top prospects are the top players of the weekend, and if they're not, then there's a potential issue.
Because they're going to be in tough when things start for real next week. But if they have good moments, they show well when main camp starts. That's a good indicator, I think. But in rookie camp, it's tough, Maddie. Like when we would cover and do these broadcasts of the Young Stars Classic, the best prospects would always look the best. And that's the way it's supposed to go. If one didn't, then you'd have concern, and that's understandable. I remember when Colton Tubert lost in a fight. I want to say it was Adam. What was his last name? He got absolutely rocked in a fight by one of the Canucks prospects, and I think he was never the same after that. And that was after he had spent time with the Oklahoma City Barons the year prior, when he got traded in that deal that involved Penner. That's a concern. But, yeah, overall, you're looking for them to be the guys that shine within their peers, and then when they get to main camp, that they don't look out of place. And if they don't look out of place. I think that's good. If they can have some nice moments early in camp, maybe get into a preseason game and look well, show well, that's a good sign, and they're kind of on the right track.
How hard is it being in Penticton and going to the hockey rink and not hitting the golf course? Or just staying outside?
When you don't have your clubs there and you're stubborn and don't want to rent clubs, it's very easy. And then when I was doing...
What about, like, the nightlife? Like, how... well, they don't play too early.
It's kind of quiet, sleepy there because everyone's gone for the summer. It's like the first or second weekend where it's relatively
You're Tom
quiet.
Gazzola. You can find the trouble.
You could find it.
You could find the fun.
Before. Yeah, sure. But it's always the Barking Parrot would be the spot to go to, and then there's a couple other places, and you have some fun. But then you work in the games the next day, and as I got older, I didn't want to be tired, if you will, quote unquote.
That doesn't seem like you.
Yeah, well, I'm almost 40, dude.
Yeah, but not when you were there.
Yeah, I know.
Not when you were there.
It would have fun. We would have a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. And then if you're there just to cover, like, say, the Oilers in those games, and you didn't have to do a broadcast and then file a pre- and post-game report, and it was a lot easier for those people.
You could always text us, 780-218-9999. Mine has frozen, so I can't get into there. But you could also message the Nasty Chat on YouTube. KGill97.
Carmen.
Burgo, Wayner, the ones to watch for. I'm very surprised when no one else is as excited about Petrov as I am. Why do you guys think that is? Do you have any idea what some other people might not be as excited about Petrov?
I suppose there's a bit of, like a little bit of a shroud of unknown with him. That's my hunch. I know that within the organization, they're very much curious and eager to see what he can do at the pro level. Like, he has all the tools. He's a prolific scorer. Can he become a solid 200-foot player? And I think that's a thing that hits a lot of guys that are known for their offensive prowess and maybe are dogged by their lack of defensive ability or perceived lack of defensive ability. You should be excited about Matvei Petrov. He is a guy in the organization that's in the pipeline, and you're like, that could be a player at some point. How does he progress when he gets to the AHL? Okay, he establishes himself as a solid offensive player at the AHL level. How is he comprehending the system? How is he fitting into the organization? Is he adapting well? And the answer should be yes, given his time spent in North America. And then, how is his complete game rounding into form? If he's ticking all those boxes, then I think we're going to see him up with the big club in a year or two. Maybe that might be a little bit premature. Maybe a couple years down the road.
3 to 4.
Maybe 3 to 4. But, in a pinch, if guys are going down with injury and they want to take a look at him because he's on a hot streak, I think he's a guy that'll probably be one of the first call-ups in a year or two.
His text comes in. Tommy, you're looking in the wrong spots. You got to go to a spin class or pumpkin patch.
What do you mean the wrong spots? I'm looking at our camera.
I think in Penticton.
Oh.
Yeah, you're looking at the wrong spots.
Oh, sorry. It's been a long day.
I got here first.
I don't know. I haven't been there in a few years. Sorry.
We're doing this without Dusty. It's incredible.
This is the first.
Boss is not here, and it's been a lot of fun.
What a day we're having.
It's been joyous. You guys had some bevies.
Yeah, it was good.
And
Common crowned the Sobeys and Safeway a liquor beer of the week. Very good. Very smooth. You should have had one.
Yeah,
Did you have one?
I wasn't invited. Like, no one offered me. Like, you guys made the offer at the end of the segment. Like, hey, maybe Matt should drink this. Like, Dusty or Eric didn't figure that out last week. And then today, you guys finally figured out, hey, there is a fourth person in this room. Maybe they would like to try this beer. So
it's not like there's...
I had then jump right into the hangout. And I had to do the tech stuff behind the scene. You guys could have offered. That's all I'm saying.
Sorry, Tom.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm sorry today about that. Sorry. That's going to be the theme.
You're known for being Jersey guy.
Yep.
You were saying we have some news on jerseys? You want to get into that a little bit?
People are wondering about the Heritage Classic jerseys. We know that it's going to be heavily inspired by the Edmonton Mercury's uniforms. No, they will not be orange. as the main color. The primary color will be blue with orange, and I believe it's antique white, as Tube Socks calls it, so an off-white for that throwback look. The pants and the gloves will be a different color, something we haven't seen before, worn by the Oilers. And then in the logo, there's an oil drop instead of a maple leaf like the Mercury's had.
I like that.
In the logo, you may see some other detail in there, personalized to the player's number.
Oh,
I think it's pretty cool. It's
like
a neat
not
touch.
like it's not like the Todd McFarlane jersey where there's like meaning behind things, because Dave Jamieson hates that stuff.
Oh, does
like
he?
he can't stand the fact that there's like meaning and you have to explain a logo. Like,
No,
yours
no,
isn't
no,
like
no,
that.
no.
This is just when people see it, they'll understand it.
Well, you see the
Yeah.
player's number
Yeah.
in the oil drop.
That's pretty cool.
That is, I think it's a nice touch.
Do you know? Does it have the strings at the top?
I can't remember. I have seen a physical one,
Yeah.
and I did see the full uniform renderings as well. I think it was like in March or April, but I liked it. It's different. It's something that the team has never worn before.
That's high praise too for you saying you like it.
Yeah.
Like you and Dave Jamieson, like you're into your jerseys, and you would be critical if you need to be. So for the fact that you're saying you like this, like it gets me excited to want to see this one.
And I think too, knowing Oiler fans and growing up here, I think some of them will look at it and be like, "Oh, okay." Like there might be an initial shock, and then when they look at it, and then some might not catch on to the Mercury's tie-in initially. And then when it's explained to them, they make, oh, I understand, and you Oilerize it. And then as well, the fact that it's not a uniform they've worn before and it's brand new, I think some people will appreciate that. I appreciate that. I respect the fact that they're stepping out of their comfort zone.
That's the thing I like.
Yeah.
Like they have a great logo. It is
It
is one of the best logos in all of North American sports. Like that straight up right there.
It's
that's
voted
awesome.
One of the best logos.
You could look up a USA Today.
Yeah.
There's, I think, from like 15 or 16 where it's voted in the top 10. Going up against the NFL logos, MLB logos, NBA logos. The Americans even idolize that logo. So it's nice to not mess with it too much, but every so often do something different is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I do wonder how many people though would know of the Mercury right off the bat. Like I know of the Mercury because I remember being old enough for the 2002 Olympics. Canada hadn't won in 50 years because the team that won prior was the Edmonton Mercury. So I'm aware of them from that, but there's a lot of people that would be in their 20s that would, I think, have absolutely no idea what the Mercury are right now.
It was a big deal in 2002 because it was the 50th anniversary of the Edmonton Mercury's victory at the Olympics. It was the last time Canada had won gold at the Olympics.
So it was a story at the time.
It was a huge story and a great tie-in and a point of pride, I think, for Edmonton. And
oh, absolutely.
Kicking up something from the past that may have been forgotten during the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, what the Oil Kings did, the Oilers, even the Edmonton Flyers, who had a good run. They were the farm team for the Detroit Red Wings. A lot of people talked about them back in the day, and maybe the Mercuries were overlooked a little bit.
Well, I mean, nowadays, like I don't think, because once you win the Olympic gold in 2002, win in 10, win in 14, I don't think the Mercuries get talked a lot. So, talked a lot about. So I think there's a lot of people that actually have no idea what the Mercury are or who the Mercury are.
And it's a good way to provide a little lesson in history, Edmonton's hockey history. So yeah, I think when people see this and they understand the tie-in after they have the initial shock, I think they'll appreciate it. I think they're going to sell well. Like it'll be a good jersey. It really will be. And they'll wear them for the game, and they'll probably wear them a few more times. They'll sprinkle them in this season. People are wondering when.
Yeah, because I was about to say one person's texting in, and I don't know if you can answer this. Why are they waiting so long to show off the jerseys and start selling them? The game is a little over a month away. You'd think they want to maximize the sales. Yeah. Any idea on a release date?
I'm hearing 26th, somewhere around there.
This month?
Of this month.
Okay.
We might get the unveiling. That's is
there anything? Is there like a significance of the
I don't know what the
is.
significance. Maybe they just want to build up a little runway and make sure some people have them before the game and they're wearing them.
Actually, speaking of that, we're expecting we'd have to be expecting a Hall of Fame announcement for the Oilers. Will we not this month?
Oh yeah, Wall of Honor, Oilers Hall of Fame.
Because
I haven't heard anything about that though. But
no?
yeah, that's
because I think that was like they announced that last year, and I thought that the group meets in September or something, and I don't think it would be long after that group meets that we're going to have the next two names. Because last year, everyone Is it 2?
Yeah. Well, it was
Or is
all the guys
everyone
that had their names
with 2
retired with Lee Fogelin and Ryan Smith, right?
Was it going to stay at 2 or is it going to go to 3 then?
I think it is supposed to be 2.
Okay.
But there might be flexibility. If I remember the guidelines that they set forth, I should text Patty Garland to ask him.
Who do you think we'd
get Doug
would
Wade
be?
in there already? Get Doug Wade in there.
I'm trying to, like, I'm sure, like, Lee Fogelin, one of those 80 guys that's not getting his jersey put up in the rafters, put a way to honor him.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the 80s? Like, I'm sure there's players, like, if right now.
Let's not.
Well, but that's the thing.
Let's
Like,
not go back
I think
to the
there'd be a
80s.
lot of people that would text in and be like, well, there's this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy from the 80s that deserve to go. Maybe Charlie Huddy and things like that.
That's a good one.
But
That's
at
a
what
good
point do you actually have to first start honoring some of the other ones, too? Like the 90s and the early 2000s.
Ryan Smith,
And
was
especially if
kind
they're
of
only
the
doing
first.
2.
Yeah. I think Doug Wade's got to be one of those guys. And Charlie Huddy's a great choice, honestly.
Cujo? Would he be in
Here's
that
the
conversation?
Here's the thing about Curtis Joseph. Awesome in his 2.5 years as an Oiler. 2 upset first-round victories. I think he was a 30-win guy every year, and that was the era of the tie. But I don't know, just does 2.5 years get you into the Oilers Hall of Fame? I don't think so. If you take a step back and look at the big picture, I don't think so. And this is coming from someone who was a monster Cujo fan when he was in Edmonton and was sad when he got when he signed with Toronto instead of sticking around with Edmonton.
I think that would have to be one where we've caught up seeing the names going in. Like the Oilers have caught up.
Yeah.
And they've got the names that they need to catch up with. And then maybe you're looking for someone near Cujo. I think when, like, because this is catch-up time.
Yeah.
They have just announced this Hall of Fame, so they have to start putting in. There's a lot of players that could be on this list, and maybe Cujo drops down because it hadn't been long enough.
I think Cujo doesn't get in until at least Bill Ranford's name is up there.
Does Bill Ranford get discussed for
Yes.
this one? And Big Uke said, texts in 780-218-9999. They just met the other day. Someone has tweeted that they had their meetings, made a comment about Gretz being on FaceTime from Italy. Haha. So they have met, so we should, I would assume, shortly.
Yes,
maybe next week or something. I think they did it right at the beginning of training camp last year.
Yeah, I think
like main camp.
something
But
like that. Well, I'll be down there
yeah.
for camp next week. Sniff around. Get some.
Freezer
hot
Bag
talk.
says Waite, Hemsky, Cujo, and Todd Marchand.
I think we're forgetting Bill Ranford in all of this.
I think that would be a big one, too.
Conn Smythe, Stanley Cup. Well, a couple Stanley Cups with them, 88 and 90. He was the guy in 90.
Okay, I'm going to take the 2000s out of this.
We're getting to the 2000s.
I know, but who needs to go in from the 90s? Let's take away the 80s. Let's take away the 2000s. Doug Waite would be there.
Bill Ranford.
Bill Ranford. Is there anyone else that is kind of being missed?
Roman Oksuda. I'm kidding. I think Marchand would be up there.
Do you?
At some point. I think he's a little bit lower down the list. Kelly Buchberger.
I was about to say is Bucky would have.
Yeah. Kelly Buchberger.
Captain.
And then after that.
Because I don't think there's a lot from the 90s. Like I
Like-
think once they catch up with the 80s
Yeah.
and get those extra names in too, there's a couple from the 90s, but now we can really get into the 2000s where you're doing, Ryan Smith's already in there, but you're doing the Alex Hemskys, you're doing the Sean Horkoff.
Are you putting Sean Horkoff in there? I don't know. I don't know.
I think there'd be some people that would put him in there. Because I think one thing that, I don't know, I'd have to look closer for me, but I think having a C helps big time. I think that's going to have a heavy influence
Jason
when you're
Smith?
dealing on this.
Jason Smith?
100%.
I think
100% Jason Smith has to go
he
in.
gets in before Sean Horkoff.
Yeah. I don't think there could be a debate on that one.
Yeah.
Horkoff was a All-Star. He was the captain.
He was
there
the
are
fastest
a couple
skater at the All-Star game when it had that bizarre format.
Was it blue line to blue line or
It
something
was
like that?
so weird. It was bad.
And then he that was when his shoulder like that was
he
right
got
after
hurt.
he got hurt, and
I
then
believe so.
I'll say I think that having the C and being an All-Star does really help. It's going to help his cause for that discussion.
Yeah, that's true. We got a text that came in and said, Georges Laraque.
No. Not at all. Because
God bless him, but does Dave Semenko get in there?
I'd have to look at the criteria again a little bit.
Is it
because there's some of it is community and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
Georges, fan favorite, people love him,
and he continues to do community events.
Absolutely.
Here.
And for his role, he was great.
Yep.
But as a hockey player overall,
those guys ahead of him,
100%. So I don't know if this isn't the most popular award. So I don't know if Georges would fall into this. Or are we disrespecting him right now?
I don't want to
disrespect
him. He brought a lot.
Because at that time, fighting was also important.
Yep.
It's not nowadays in hockey. You don't have those players on your team. But having Georges Laraque on your team at that time was a big deal because no one was ever going to mess with your players.
That's true. I don't think he's on the priority list. Let's just put it that way. At some point, maybe. Or he's just beloved.
It's
anytime
that's
he comes
where it
here.
is. That's he's absolutely beloved. He goes on the scoreboard at other games when he shows up, and people lose their mind. Everyone absolutely is. He's a weekly guest with Bob now. Oilers now 5 to 7, 6:30. Ched, tune in. Hey, got to give some love first off.
Yes,
our
he's
boy
our
right
friend.
there. People still want to hear from him.
Yes,
but I don't know if that's worthy of Oilers Hall of Fame.
And are we guilty of being unable to separate appreciation for what a player did as opposed to overall impact and value brought to the organization over a certain length of time?
I'd have to look back at the criteria and what they're trying to decide.
Or is
because
he within that criteria?
Yeah, Fernando Pisani had that great playoff run. 06, it doesn't happen partly
North
because
side
of
boy.
him.
Yeah.
Does he fall into this discussion at some point? Or is that okay, he had that great year, was a fine player, but is that worthy of Oilers Hall of Fame?
All due respect to Fernando, unlikely.
Freezer Bag says Craig McTavish.
That's a good one.
Oh, he sent in more of a list. He had Gator. He had Anson Carter, Bill Guerin. I think those two fall a little bit into the Cujo criteria.
Exactly.
A little too short.
Great, but they were only here for a small period of time, right? Like the guys that were here for a decade and played relevant, significant, however you want to describe it, roles will always get the nod over the guys that were great for a small window of time.
Okay, so now, is that the same for Dwayne Rollison?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because there's going to be those that, again, back like I said with Horkov with captaincy, people are going to look at Rollison and went, they would have won a Stanley Cup if Bergeron doesn't knock him out. So does that give you some...
game one.
Yeah.
Cozy Texan says, what about Hemsky? Yeah, I think Hemsky gets in there eventually. But there's guys in front of him in the queue.
I'd be intrigued what people say on this one.
What do you got?
EM Storm in the nasty chat. Steve Smith. Because how many people are immediately just going to go right to the error?
All people will.
Exactly. But that's not who he was. He was a good player, and people will also tell you that they had the rest of the hockey game to tie it up and get the win, and they didn't do that. It wasn't like it was like a minute left in the third period. Does he get into the discussion?
And he was a coach for a long time in the organization.
Yeah, I think that's going to have to matter, which is why I think Craig McTavish will take a step up.
Yeah.
Because of everything he's
done.
Put
aside his GM days. You have to.
Yeah, 100% you have to.
Steve Smith, great guy. Honestly, one of the best guys. But his time in Edmonton, what did he get in there? 85, 86 to 90, 91. Is that enough of a window of time in an Oiler uniform? A great time, 3 cups. But after that, he was in Chicago. He's the captain of the Flames at one point. Then he comes back as a coach. We forget about that.
I love these type of discussions because
there's great suggestions.
Well, they're also you get away from cap talk. It's why I love the Olympics of building teams. It's why I love talking about the World Junior teams as you're building the teams. I love the Hall of Fame talk because you're just talking about the sport.
That's true.
You just the business gets to be thrown away. We don't have to worry about the $4 million. Even when we said Horkov, we didn't bring up $7 million.
I was thinking it.
But it wasn't spoken. It never was spoken.
No, it was
we get
not.
to just talk hockey. This is the Oil Stream. Matt Wannick and Tom Gazzola with you here. We'll take a short break. When we come back, you want to get into your rankings of importance? Go 10 through 6?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Let's do that. You're listening to Edmonton Sports Talk on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, or you're watching on YouTube.
The Lock Shop.
We've been doing this for a long time. We spend all this time salivating over the season. Sometimes, if you haven't learned your lesson, you go hard betting on week 1. And then we get ready to get into week 3 of the season going, what the hell were we talking about for a month leading into the season? Because everything we thought was the case was wrong. So I always tread a little lightly. And I mean, I try not to make these so definitive takes. Things can change very, very quickly, or maybe they have and we just haven't seen it yet.
The Lock Shop with Nielsen and Hustler. Weekday mornings at 11, only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Catch up with friends of EST, Andrew, Mike, and Kayla, as they get you in the huddle with the Edmonton Elks on the Turf District. Thursday nights at 8, EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Friend of EST, Eric Thomas, takes you around the track all the way to the checkered flag on Raceline Radio. Tuesday nights at 8 and Saturday morning at 9. Only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Join friend of EST, Guy Flaming, for the Pipeline Show, Monday nights at 8 and Saturday at noon, as he has you covered with CHL, CJHL, USHL, NAHL, NCAA, and U Sports, plus the World Juniors, Frozen Four, and NHL Draft on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Wake up with the Nielsen Show with Dustin Nielsen and Lieutenant Eric. Weekday mornings 6 to 9 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Get to know the winners, props, plays, parlays, and more with Nielsen and Hustler. Weekday mornings at 11 on The Lock Shop. Only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tom Gazzola and Sean Bell take you on a hot lap around the NHL with Hello Hockey, Saturday mornings at 10, only on Edmonton Sports Talk. Join Murray McCourt and Curtis Stock for tips and tales from courses around Edmonton and area with the VIP Golf Show, presented by the Tailor Made Performance Center at the Ranch, Sundays at 8:30, only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. The Elks Call is the newest Edmonton Elks podcast, located in Edmonton, discussing everything Elks. Join friends of EST, Scout and Catherine, Friday nights at 8 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Don't feel like working? Join the Hangout. You never know what you might hear. Weekday mornings 9 to 11 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com.
And we're back here live on the Oil Stream on EdmontonSportsTalk.com or on our YouTube channel. Matt Wannick, Tom Gazzola with you here, doing the Dean Faithful Queen Wave.
I love it.
The wrist is, you're not supposed to move the hand a lot. I don't know.
I like the look.
Yeah, the look actually made
well
that.
Done, Dean.
Well done. Elks in action tonight out in Saskatchewan, taking on the Rough Riders. They say it's a 7 o'clock kickoff.
I thought it was 7:30.
Is it? I thought they said... I should look this up.
I thought it was 7:30. I could.
If it's 7:30, like that makes
early
more
game.
sense. But you have the 5 o'clock game.
Yeah.
And that's what I was gonna be like. You 7:30. Okay.
Dusty's on
that's
the
still
call.
gonna be pretty close. Mm-hmm. That's gonna be tight to see if the CFL
Well,
doesn't often to kick off while the other one's going. They started doing that a little bit last year.
If only they had 5 channels to be able to manage this schedule.
They need a kickoff right away because I need to get to the Whale and Wolf show at Starlight Room.
Yes, sir. I'll be there too. That's going to be awesome. Hopefully the tickets sold out.
Yeah, there were only 20 left at the start of the Hango, and that was 2.5 hours ago. We'll get to the next portion, 10 through 6 of your list of rankings of importance for the Edmonton Oilers. But a couple of messages we want to get to. 780-218-9999 is how you could text us. You wanted to get to the one from Burglar?
Yeah, Burglar texted in and said, conversations like this about the Hall of Fame, Oilers Hall of Fame to be specific, sure bring to light the magnitude of Oilers history. And Burglar makes a great point.
But I was confused by the point.
But
because is that a negative or is that a positive conversation? Because if we're talking about, like, we're talking a lot of great players.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the 80s, there was a lot of great players, and there's some guys that came through in the 90s and the early 2000s. But after that, there's not going to be a lot of names we're going to be talking about until this team.
Exactly.
So is that saying a magnitude of this team in a good way or in a bad way?
So I think it's honest, and if you are honest, generally there's a negative slight to it. If you look at this team in the 40 whatever years it's been a part of the National Hockey League, half of it's been a bad team on the ice.
Yeah.
You have the decade of darkness. You had the mid-90s where there was some mega struggles. There was a good 4 years where they missed the postseason. Even a few teams in the early 2000s, it was spotty, and it ends up being almost 2 decades of just bad hockey. At one point, they were ranked one of the worst-run pro sports franchises in North America for a reason. 30th, 29th, 28th, 30th. And I think Burglar brings up a good point. Like, they were bad. And I don't think we gloss over it. I mean, you want to forget those years, but half of this franchise existence, it was one of the worst teams on the ice.
Which is funny because
and sometimes in the front office.
The other half is one of the greatest franchises you will ever have. It's the same with the Elks. Like, the Elks have this history of amazing, being this amazing franchise, but you look at their last 2 decades, and it's terrible.
Outside of the Mike Riley years.
The couple of years in there, that's about it.
Yeah.
Since their Grey Cup in 05, that one. 14, 15 were unbelievable.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot of great the rest of that way,
Even some of the Ricky Ray years.
Yeah, because they had no O-line in front of them.
Exactly.
So that's where I read that and I went, yeah, that's I see it as a way of there's a lot of great players to talk about that this franchise has had in the past, but there's also going to be a period of there's not a lot to pick and choose from. Exactly. And when we get past the Ryan Smith, Sean Horkoff era, it's not going to be long till we jump to the Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl era. There's not a lot of players in between. There are some. There's the Sam Gagnes, there's the Taylor Halls, there's the Ryan Nugent-Hopkins that will be talked about and put in. But there's not a long list that we're going to go through with those ones.
We've had Freezer Bag saying Peter Klima and made a joke, Jofa Helmet should be inducted too. R.I.P. Peter Klima. Freezer Bag also said Pisani's goal was big enough. You don't hang it on one goal, because wouldn't we be talking about Kevin McClellan in 84? Like, that was a monster. That led to a Stanley Cup. The first one.
Yeah.
Pisani's led to another game in the final. One of his many goals that postseason. Another one.
Freezer Bag, sorry, just saying, imagine being a Leafs fan, good for 5% of their existence. I'll always be happy to rip on the Leafs for that one, so thank you for that text.
Another text out of Calgary says, this was, what do you think about Luke Richardson? That's from Luke in Cowtown. He was a really good defenseman in the NHL for a long time. Good Oiler for a good chunk of time in the 90s, but what did he get there? Like 92, left in 98 or 97. So maybe not enough of a window, and those were bad years too. He was on those teams that missed the playoffs, and then part of the team that made the, not the run in 97, but was on the team that beat Dallas.
I love those years. They weren't like the greatest years. They weren't the worst years.
But that was
fun. That playoff race was always so much fun.
Yeah.
And then when they got in the playoffs, having that 1 or maybe 2 series as a kid, I don't know. It was
couldn't count
awesome.
them out because they always worked hard and they had some skill.
Yes. And they always found, like, there was always that trade between after Glenn Sather went to the Rangers, there was always the trade that was made at the deadline or something that helped the Oilers, like bringing in Mike York.
Yes, I vividly remember at the 2015 draft, Glenn Sather and Peter Chiarelli having numerous lengthy conversations, and they were finding a way to get Cam Talbot to Edmonton. And that was Glenn Sather doing the Oilers a solid.
Well, there was the Mike Richter briefly being an Edmonton Oiler.
That was the Oilers doing the Rangers a solid.
Well, and then the Oilers got a draft pick out of that.
There was a time where Mark Messier's rights were acquired by the Oilers.
I miss those times. I think there was one more.
It was like it was all paper transactions.
Yeah, but then the Oilers got the draft pick because he re-signs back in with the Rangers and all that. That was those were some fun times.
I feel like that would be something right up original Puzar's alley, where he would dig into that and give us the full explanation of why that occurred and at the time the way that CBA worked.
Yeah, because it was like if you lost a player, it's like I think the NFL has it kind of.
It's
if you
like
lose a player or something,
rights.
you get compensation for it. They don't do that anymore into the NHL. Instead, the Oilers lose draft picks for signing GMs and coaches
at the league's discretion.
Let's get into your rankings of importance for the Edmonton Oilers. You've already gone through 11 through 25 plus honorable mention.
Yep. All honorable mention was Calvin Pickard, 25, Lane Peterson, 24, Raphael Lavoie, number 23, Marcus Niemelainen, 22, Drake Gazzola, 21, Sam Gagner, 20, Dylan Holloway, 19, Warren Fogle, 18, Vinny Desharnais, 17, Philip Broberg, 16, Derek Ryan, 15, Matthias Janmark, 14, Ryan McLeod, 13, Brett Kulak, 12, Connor Brown, 11, Cody Ceci. That brings us to number 10, Matthew Iwanek.
Let's get to it.
On the Oil Stream 2023-2024 rankings of importance at number 10, 1, Jack Bartholomew Campbell.
Oh.
Just Jack Campbell. He's in the top. Goaltending is going to be very important.
Yep.
He's going to have a bounce back year.
I expect it.
I think everybody expects it. The organization expects it.
I think when you're talking about goalies, like he uproots his family to come here, new kids, the full off season, being with this new his new franchise, but having that full off season this year, I think he's going to take a step up.
Goalies are always vital, and especially if there's going to be. Listen, I do think it's going to be Stuart Skinner getting the majority of the starts. Now, how much of a majority? I could see Skinner getting 50-ish, 45, and then Campbell getting the others like closer to 40. And it depends how Skinner will perform. And then Campbell will have to be reliable, but I don't think we're talking about like a 60-22 split here.
No, but how much of Stuart Skinner's play in the playoffs last year came from him potentially being tired?
Overworked late in the season. Some within the organization have admitted to that and said, you know what, I think he played a little bit too much. Exposed to the postseason. Not enough trust in Campbell's game to put him in, regardless of how he beat LA. I thought he was shaky in that playoff game where the Oilers come back and beat the Kings in overtime. Every puck that was funneled towards the Oilers' net and Campbell made the save, I was like, whoa, that had a chance. And then the other games he went in relief of Stuart Skinner, he was all right. But I don't know. Like, I understand the hesitation from the Oilers to start Jack Campbell. And you had leads in every one of those games. Would you trust Jack Campbell? Even if you look back at it now, would you have started Jack Campbell in those games? I don't know. I don't think so.
At that time, to me, I know there was a lot going into the last game against Vegas going, you got to go with him. I never said that. I never felt that, and I still don't.
Yeah.
Because every time he went in net, even in relief, and when he was playing well in relief in those playoffs, you still were worried about every shot that went on net.
The doubt in the back of your mind.
And how if you're Jay Woodcroft, did you not have that in your mind? But
I think he did have it in his mind.
But then with the Skinner being potentially overworked, like long gone are the days of Mikko Kiprusoff starting 72 games or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
So you do need Jack Campbell to take the net for, if it's going to be 50 for Skinner, that leaves 32 for Jack Campbell. You're going to need him in
30 plus.
You do.
I think upwards of 35, creeping up to 40, depending on Skinner's overall play, how he's handling the workload and performance, and then knock on wood, health.
And that's not a shot at Stuart Skinner
Not
at
at
all.
all.
He could be playing well, but you still want Jack Campbell in,
Yeah.
partly
Yeah.
because it's not about winning the battle, it's about winning the war. And having Stuart Skinner rested for playoffs is the war.
Yeah.
It's not the battle. David sitting there in January and saying, well, Stuart Skinner's on a roll, you can't mess with his role.
Yeah.
Is that really as important as making sure he's as fresh as you can be come April?
You need him fresh. Lesson learned last year. Also, when they gave Campbell those starts in the last couple of weeks of the season, it was almost like they were just throwing him a bone, hoping his game would be back into form.
Yeah. And against lesser opponent.
Absolutely.
That were not playoff teams. Number 9.
Number 9, one Zach Hyman. And this is one that might be debated.
In what way?
People saying
too
he should be
low,
higher
or-
up the
okay.
list. Zach Hyman is a key piece. This is a deep team. You can say that they need more depth and oomph in the bottom 6. I get that. I 100% get that. And they'll probably be looking to add to the bottom 6 later in the season. But I'm putting Zach Hyman here. He is very much a valuable key piece on this team. He's their best right winger, even though he plays left wing at times. Zach Hyman, 30 goals, 65, 70 points, very consistent, reliable, tough to play against. He will be that. Now, I'm putting him here again because I think the top 5 are pretty obvious. And then this is why I'm saying this grouping of 5 is the debatable one. And listen, he might deserve to be 1 or 2 rankings higher, but Zach Hyman at 9, that's a good problem to have.
Well, I think that just tells you also the depth of this team, that we're talking about a player like Zach Hyman being the 9th most important player for the Edmonton Oilers this year.
He's not at 9 because of
he had a bad
things
year
he
or
lacks
something.
in his game. It's just the other guys
bring that little
have
extra.
And should have more impact on the team overall.
Number 8.
Number 8. And here's a guy, if he's healthy, that I think could have a monster season. I'm going with Evander Kane at number 8. I think his potential, what he's done in this league, is something we get swept up in, media included, myself included. You go, geez, this guy could have 40 goals.
Mm-hmm. He has the capability.
Absolutely. He's a steady top 6. He's dangerous when he's engaged in games.
Has
He
that
brings the
physicality.
physical element. He brings the sneer. He brings a certain confidence to the group.
He goes out there and every Oilers sits up a little more.
Yeah, he's
They
one of
feel
those
because
guys.
he just does that. He gives you that arrogance on the ice.
Swag.
Which that's the best word.
got
He
swag.
gives you a swag that I think is infectious that goes to everyone else.
Again, and this is not knocking him at all that he's at 8 and not picking apart his game. It's just there's guys coming up that I think have more of a complete impact or have more of a touch on areas of the game than Evander Kane.
Are you concerned about him at all saying, did he not say in these last few weeks he's still not feeling right?
Yeah, that's concerning. Or maybe he's just, that might, I don't know if he's smart, like he's very savvy media-wise, and that might be, I laugh at my uncle who always says, hey, Tom, aim low and achieve, right? Like,
yeah,
he's not setting the bar too high. Just, and maybe there's some truth to him not feeling 100% complete. Like the injuries, the ribs, that's tough. Those heal over time. The wrist, I don't know what is that, to have your tendons and all of that severed, like to get your feeling back. I could understand that maybe not being 100% either, but that's maybe him kind of laying it out there. It's like, hey, I'm expecting to have a great year, but temper expectations. Maybe that's just a bit of a play. We'll see. But he's at number 8, and he has all the ability to make a high impact on this team, and I think he will.
Number 7.
Number 7 is one Stuart Skinner.
Really?
Yep. Do you think he should be higher up?
I was thinking he'd be in the top 5 because of the
He could
importance
be,
of goaltending.
and
I
this
know,
is one where
that's
people-
why I'm intrigued by that. Okay.
But, okay. Now, this is why I came to the decision Skinner's at 7. If Campbell is going to play, let's say hypothetically 35 games, That's almost half.
Yeah.
So Skinner's got just over half.
Right, but Skinner's the guy you're envisioning in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
And not a split there, and that's where I go, like, why did the Oilers get knocked out to the Golden Knights last year?
They made mistakes, and they couldn't get saves.
One, that's if you have slightly better goaltending. The only team that really gave the Golden Knights a challenge was the Oilers. Yeah. And that's where I would go with, that's where I'm just surprised that Skinner may be dropping out of the top 5, because if he produces like we thought he could have last year, they go to the Cup final. I'm not saying they're going to win it necessarily, but they maybe knock off the Golden Knights. So that's where just a little intrigue. I'm very intrigued for your top 5 next week.
Well, yeah.
But continue with Skinner.
All right. So Skinner at 7, and again, this is subjective, and people will rip it, and that's fine. That's why we do this.
I don't think they're ripping it. I don't think.
Well, it gets ripped. Some people hold it against you.
Come on, it's just conversation here.
But that's why we do this.
We're having a nice
chat.
Going. It's a nice debate.
Yeah, exactly. So Skinner at 7, number 6.
Let's get to number 6.
The new Papa, Baby Nuge, no longer Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, number 6. I know there's people that still. I think of someone who texts in Alfredo, who rips the Nuge all the time.
Yeah, there was a few I remember.
Show, and some people, say he's overly compensated. He took a haircut to stay here long term. People don't like the term of the contract. This is a guy that's lining up to be a lifetime Oiler, and he'll play the most games in franchise history. He'll eclipse Kevin Lowe, coming off a 100-point season. Do I think that Nugent-Hopkins replicates 100 points? No, I don't. But I think if he's at 80 to 90, I think that's money well spent. I think that's a successful season. This is a guy that kills penalties. This is a guy that is on that number 1 power play. I think he's a very important part of that power play. And this is a guy that can play center or wing, and now he's become more flexible in that regard. So Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, some people might not like it, but he's at number 6 to me.
What do you think they don't like it, that he's that high?
I just
or you think they put it lower? It's weird. Like, I remember when he got his 100 point last year, I tweeted out that, like, all the haters, like, take that type thing. It was Robin Brownlee. He's like, who hates on Nugent-Hopkins? And it's like, a lot of people do. A lot of people like to hate on Ryan Nugent-Hopkins for some reason, even though this guy might be the first Oiler to go pillar to post in his career with this franchise.
Yeah.
And has gone through a lot of suffering and has yet still produced this entire time.
Yeah.
But there are those people that just like to hate on this guy.
Yes.
And they don't look at everything else he does beyond goals, assists, points.
Yeah. But his face-offs suck. Yep. There are weaknesses in his game. Not a lot, but there are some. Overall, this is an important part of this team. He's part of the leadership core. He's been here a long time. He's in at number 6, and he touches almost every area of the game for this team.
I'm very intrigued for 1 through 5. That's Monday?
I
think you guys are doing
5.
that Monday?
Yeah, it'll be on Monday.
Yeah, you and Dusty.
Yeah.
He'll be back, and you guys will have that on the Oil Stream Monday. At
3 to 5, Maddie. Sorry to interrupt. 3 to 5 is where people are going to...
I could imagine who you put at 1 and 2.
Wayne Gretzky. Kidding.
Can't believe this one's not Calvin Pickard at number 1 or 2.
You got honorable mention. I think
I'm surprised you didn't put him at that 1 or 2 slot.
Right.
I can't even imagine where you're going to go with 1 and 2. The exact order of that one either. 3 to 5 will be a lot of fun. That will come on the Oil Stream, like I said, on Monday. Dusty will be back as he's in Regina tonight to talk Elks and Rough Riders. So let's go through. We just did 6 to 10. Let's go through 10 through 6 once again. What do you got?
Jack Campbell at 10. Zach Hyman at 9, Evander Kane at 8, Stuart Skinner 7, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins at 6.
I look forward to this.
Okay.
It was so nice being on the Oil Stream.
Hey,
today.
great job hosting the Oil Stream. This is the first time.
I legit was nervous about the Oil Stream this one.
Oh, it's a fun show.
You guys, you and Dusty do great work on this show.
We love it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, I'm replacing Dustin Nielsen right now. That's not easy to do.
You did a great job, man.
I appreciate that.
Did a great job all day today. Really quickly, jersey recap. Around the 26th, we expect them to be unveiled somewhere around there. And then expect to see in the oil drop their numbers. There you go. Details.
Edmonton Sports Talk tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Hello, Hockey. You and Sean Bell.
Hockey, yes.
What do you guys got coming up?
Thank you for the Hello Hockey plug. It looks like we've got Anthony Stewart and Fred Brathwaite joining us on Hello Hockey tomorrow. And listen, we saw Evander Kane, who we spoke of, leave the HDA, and I talked to Belzy a lot. He brings up HDA issues, and Akeem Alou, who's been back in the news with Bill Peters getting a job with the Lethbridge Hurricanes. This is not a finished product. The HDA, the NHL doing its own thing when it comes to diversity in the game. And this is something that Belzy and I think is very important and still needs to be discussed. So we'll definitely get on that conversation tomorrow on Hello Hockey. And Belzy's great. Like, obviously he can attack this issue from one angle, being a minority in the game, dealing with it growing up, making it to the National Hockey League. But his open-mindedness, he knows how to attack it from all different angles and understands arguments. And I think we've got 3 guys tomorrow that are going to be able to hit on some really timely subjects in the game, especially when it comes to diversity in hockey.
VIP Golf Show with Murray McCourt, Sunday, 8:30, live right here at Edmonton Sports Talk in our YouTube channel. Tonight, 7 o'clock, MCTV with Corey Graham and Mark Majot, 8 o'clock, Elks Call. That's all to come here on Edmonton Sports Talk this weekend. Pipeline Show tomorrow at noon as well. Raceline Radio at 9 o'clock. So we got a full block, 9 until 3 o'clock tomorrow, or 2 o'clock. We got local programming. You had something else?
Maddie, we're almost at 4,000 YouTube subscribers. Like, share, and subscribe.
Let's get to 4,000 by the time Dusty and Eric hit the air Monday morning at 6. How incredible would that be?
How about by the time Will and the Wolf hits the stage at Starlight Room tonight, tickets might still be available.
Not many left.
Yeah.
There's not many left. Our first full week of Edmonton Sports Talk in the book. On behalf of Dustin Nielsen, Lieutenant Eric, Tom Gazzola, I'm Matt Iwanek. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and maybe we'll see you at the Starlight Room for Will and the Wolf.